In this video I'm going to be displaying a message program in C# this time. There is a Visual Basic alternative, and look through the channel to find it. The program works in a very simple way. 3 buttons: display message, and it will display a message, in this case just hello world. The second button will clear the message, which completely clears the text box, not just hiding any text, and the third one ends the program or closes it. The different names for the different buttons, I've got button underscore display message, as you can see in the properties window at the top. You can also find that under the name property. Clear message, btn underscore clear, and close, you'll find that as btn underscore close. And finally, the text box, which I forgot to name before I started the video, is txt underscore, let's just call that one message. Now, one of the main things that you'll actually find is when you're programming, do small bits at a time. So in this case, I'm going to start off with a clear message button, but before I do, I'll just explain what I've done with the text box. The text box is just a generic text box. I've actually placed in hello world just for size and design reasons. I can clear that out in a moment, but I'm leaving it there for the video so you guys can see what's happening. I'm going to go to font, and I've just changed that size to 50. If I change that to 8, it automatically will change the size of that text box for us by itself without using any multi-line or anything complex like that. So I'm just setting the size to 50, nice and simple. So the first thing I want to do is let's get the clear message button to clear the message. And it's quite a little bit different to Visual Basic. You'll see a lot of other stuff that gets set up. For the moment, we're not worrying about this, except they are a number of different libraries that we call upon and used. Visual Basic hides bits and pieces like that. And there are a couple of things that you've got to make sure you leave there. So it's everything that's there by default, just leave until we start to get into that understanding of what we actually are going to be using. Different places will say you should delete it all and only add what as you need it. For now, these are just holiday tasks, so really take your time and only focus on the parts that you're writing and leave everything else. So just to avoid a bit of confusion, we're looking at button clear, and if you remember, that's the button that I actually double clicked to come in, and when I click that button, that's my click event, we can actually make the code in between these 2 brackets run. So in this case, what I actually want to happen is I want that text underscore message dot text, and the reason why I want it to be the dot text is because that's the property I want to change, and I'll show you what I mean. On that text box, you've got a number of different properties, and the one that I actually want to change is this text property. And the reason why I know that is I literally came in, changed what I needed, and that's what actually happened. Now, what I want to do is I want to delete the entire message and make it clear. To do that, I do need to modify the text, and I'll show you that in code in a second. And the reason why I do know it's text is I may have tried something else. So I'm just going to place hello world back there for now. But I may have thought, oh, well, text align, that might be what I want to change. I came in, played around with it, and that just is the alignment. That's not necessarily. You could play around with all the different settings until you find the one that you want to modify. I find that's the best way to actually learn, is play around with it. Worst thing that can happen is you have to press undo because it wasn't what you're after. But I want to change that text property. So when we're in code, we have our object, txt underscore message, and then we access that property. Now, we actually want to set that property to be something, and in this case, we want it to be nothing. Now, in C# and even any language, we actually can't put the word nothing like that because we actually want it to be a word. It needs to be in quotation marks, which means it is a string data type, and you'll remember that from previous years. If you're not sure, come and ask me. Quotation marks allow us to actually have that string or a word, so it can actually be inserted into the text box, but that doesn't really work for us. So if we get rid of the word, we have no words in there. There's no sentences, there's no characters in between that string, which means it is effectively empty. To show you what I mean by that, I'm going to put nothing back and start my design. And again, we've only programmed the clear message, so when I hit clear, it displays nothing. and it's displaying exactly that same character set that I've got, not what I'm after. So in this case, if I delete that word nothing, save, and then start, when I hit clear message, it replaces it with nothing. It's understanding that the quotation marks, there's nothing in between them. Again, with C#, every line has to be finished with a semicolon. As a general rule of thumb, there are things like if statements and that we'll get into later, but for now, just remember a semicolon has to go at the end of every line that you write. Back to our code. Now we want it to display a message, and in this case we're actually going to do the exact same thing, but text_message.text, we want to change that property, and instead of it actually just being in between quotation marks, what I want to do is I want to write a word. Just like I had the word nothing before, I actually want to use hello world. And finally, you'll notice I'm getting a little error on the side, and you can easily jump down to the error list, and it's a semicolon is expected. So I'm actually going to come up and place my semicolon in. So it is pretty good at telling you, Visual Studio community at least. Again, I'm going to save, and I'm going to start. So I'm hitting that button and nothing's really happening because hello world's already displayed. If I clear my message and then hit display, it does come up. So those two parts are now working. The final button that I need to program is the close button, and that one is a very simple, in Visual Basic at least, is end. There's another couple of ways to actually do this in C#, and you could always come down to the application.exit command, and that usually does work for most. So there is a couple of things that do work and don't work, and it really is a matter of trying to find out what does. So application.exit, and I'm showing you this just for argument's sake. When I come down to error list, only assignment, call, increment, or decrement and new object expressions can be used as a statement. So I'm actually stating that, unfortunately. So if I put that as down as a function, it's actually going to call that function, and we'll talk about that word function later. But by placing application.exit and then the open bracket and close bracket, it calls that function for us. Once I hit start, display message, clear message works, and when I close, it closes that application for me. So just be aware that when we actually type, those 3 lines of code is all we needed, but the one that's really going to get you stuck is this application.exit, because everybody always forgets the brackets, including myself half the time. If you actually want to push yourself, and the challenge for this task, although it's not part of your initial design, is to add a 4th button that actually allows the person to type a message, and you'd have a button called Save Message, and then it displays that custom message. Again, that's a challenge, not something that you have to do, and if you want to try it and see how you go or ask questions, definitely come and ask me. Otherwise, until the next video.